Welcome again to my class. So for today's topic, I'm going to discuss about quadratic equations and how to solve it in 4 different ways. So let us start, and I hope you'll enjoy our lesson for today.
There are 4 different ways of solving a quadratic equation, which are by extracting the square roots, by factoring, by completing the square, and by quadratic formula. In this lesson, we will cite examples on how to solve quadratic equations using each method.
Solving quadratic equations by extracting the square roots can only be done if your quadratic equation is in the form of x squared is equal to k. So, to better understand, let us consider these examples. We have x squared minus 100 is equal to 0. By applying the addition property of equality, by adding 100 on both sides of the equation, therefore we have x squared minus 100 plus 100 is equal to 0 plus 100. So we added 100 on both sides of the equation because whatever you do on the left, you should also do it on the right side of your equation. So we can now cancel negative 100 plus 100 since it results to 0. So we now have x squared is equal to 0 plus 100 is 100. We can now extract the square root of both sides of the equation, and then we can simplify. So taking the square root of x squared and 100, it gives us square root of x squared is x is equal to, in taking the square root, we always have two answers, one positive and one negative. So the square root of 100 is 10. So the values of x are, or the solutions to our equations are, x is equal to 10 and x is equal to negative 10. These Another example we have here is 3x squared plus 15 is equal to 0. Since we have said that our equation should be of the form x squared is equal to k, so let us again apply the addition property of equality by adding negative 15 on both sides of the equation, which gives us 3x squared plus 15 minus 15 is equal to 0 minus 15. We subtracted 15 on both sides of the equation. So again, positive 15 minus 15 is 0. So simplifying, we have 3x squared is equal to 0 minus 15 is negative 15. Now, since their common factor is 3, we can divide both sides by 3. Cancel 3 because 3 divided by 3 is 1. It gives us x squared is equal to negative 15 divided by positive 3 is negative 5. We can now extract the square root of both sides of the equation and then simplify. So, the square root of x squared and the square root of negative 5. Square root of x squared is x is equal to positive negative square root of negative 5. So, Our solutions are x is equal to positive square root of negative 5 and x is equal to negative square root of negative 5. Our next example is x minus 5 squared minus 16. Since we could notice that this is already squared, therefore we can now extract the square root of both sides of the equation, then simplify. So let us take the square root of this and the square root of 16. So canceling this, we have x minus 5 is equal to the square root of 16 is positive and negative 4. We can now simplify our equations by applying again the addition property of equality by adding 5 on both sides of the equation. So we now have x minus 5 plus 5 is equal to positive negative 4 plus 5. Since we have two operations here, we're gonna have two answers. So negative 5 plus 5 gives us 0. So x is equal to positive negative 4 plus 5. Let us divide this in two. So we have one answer for positive 4 and one answer when we use negative 4. So in this side, we have x is equal to 4 plus 5. While on this side, x is equal to negative 4 plus 5. Simplify, x is equal to 4 plus 5 is 9. On the other hand, x is equal to negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. So the solutions to our equation now is x is equal to 9 and x is equal to 1. Let us now try solving by factoring quadratic equations. In factoring quadratic equations, we are to follow 4 basic steps. Number 1 is to transform the quadratic equation in standard form if necessary. Step 2. Factor the polynomial. Step 3. Apply the zero product property by setting each factor equal to 0. And lastly, solve the equation in step 3. So I have here an example which we will solve using factoring. We have 3x squared minus 15x is equal to 0. If the equation is already written in standard form, proceed to factoring. So we will factor 3x squared minus 15x is equal to 0. We will get the common factors for 3x squared minus 15x is equal to 0. So therefore, we have here, since our coefficients are 3 and 15, we can extract it to 3 and then we have common is x. So bring out 3x. 3x squared divided by 3x gives us x. Negative 15x divided by positive 3x is negative 5 is equal to 0. So how will you know if your factors are correct? So by distributing 3x to all the terms of x minus 5, it should give you 3x squared minus 15x. Let's check. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 5 is negative 15x. Therefore, your factors are correct. Let us now set each factor equal to 0. So we'll divide this in two. We have 3x is equal to 0 and another factor is x minus 5 is equal to 0. Now let us solve for each equation. We have 3x is equal to 0. To solve for x, let us divide both sides by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we have x is equal to 0 divided by 3 is 0. Next, on this side, we have x plus 5 is equal to 0. So, we're using the addition property of equality by adding positive 5 on both sides. Or, let's simply transpose negative 5 to the right side of the equation. So, we have x is equal to negative 5. If we are going to transform it, so this will become positive 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. So, therefore, the solutions to our equation are x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 5. Let us solve x squared is equal to 9x minus 18 using the factoring method. So again, the first thing we have to do is to rewrite the equation in standard form. We can use the addition property of equality or simply the transposition method. So let us transfer 9x and negative 18 to the left side of the equation. Or let us add negative 9x and 18 on both sides of the equation. So, I'm gonna use the transposition method. We have now x squared, then the linear term 9x. From positive, this will become negative 9x. And then the constant, which is negative 18, will become positive 18. Is equal to 0 since nothing is left on the right side of the equation. Then, we can now simplify by combining like terms. Since this is already in standard form, there are nothing to combine. We can now proceed by factoring the polynomial. So this is an example of a perfect square trinomial. So the factors would be x squared, it's x times x. Next, let us look for the factors of 18 when we add or subtract will give us negative 9. So there are different factors of 18 like 9 and 2, 18 and 1, but I will use negative 6 and negative 3. Since negative 6 times negative 3 will give us positive 18 is equal to 0. If you want to check if your answer is correct, you will multiply again x minus 6 times x minus 3. If you will get x squared minus 9x plus 18, then therefore your factors are correct. So again, we will apply the zero product property wherein we will equate both factors to 0. So again, divide this into 2. X minus 6 is equal to 0 and x minus 3 is equal to 0. Solving for x, so x is equal to transpose negative 6. From negative, this will become positive. Or add 6 on both sides of the equation using the addition property of equality. This is our first solution. On the right side, we have x is equal to transpose negative 3. From negative, this will become positive. Or add 3 on both sides of the equation using the addition property of equality. So, our second solution is 3. So, the factors or the solutions to x squared minus 9x minus 18 is positive 6 and positive 3. Our first example is x squared minus 12x plus 35 is equal to 0. Let us solve this using the completing the square method. So the first thing you have to consider is if the right term is equated to 0. Then we can now proceed the completing the square method. All you have to do is number 1, we will apply the addition property of equality by adding negative 35 on both sides of the equation, or simply let us transfer 35 to the right side of the equation, making it negative 35. So we will now have x squared minus 12x plus blank. We'll always leave a blank. And then, again, as I have said, we will transfer positive 35 to the right side of the equation, giving us negative 35. And then, we will also put plus blank because whatever we will add on the left side, we will also add on the right side. So our goal for now is to make this left side a perfect square trinomial. How are we going to do that? So we will just take the numerical coefficient of the linear term. In this case, it is negative 12. And then divided it by 2. So negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Whatever the answer is, square it. So negative 6 squared or negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. So we will add 36 on the left side and another 36 on the right side of the equation, giving us now as x squared minus 12x plus 36 as a perfect square trinomial. So therefore, we can now simplify and express this as x minus, so whatever is the result when you divide the numerical coefficient of the linear term into 2 would be the second term squared. So x squared minus 12x plus 36 is also the same as x minus 6 squared is equal to negative 35 plus 36 is positive 1. So we were able to express this as a square of a binomial equals 1. This time, we can now use the square root property, which we have discussed a while ago. So x minus 6 squared is equal to 1. Taking the square root, we have, so x minus 6 squared, the square root is x minus 6 is equal to square root of 1 is positive negative 1. And then let us solve for positive 1 and when we use negative 1. So we have x minus 6 equals 1 and x minus 6 is equal to negative 1. Simplify and combine similar terms. We have x is equal to positive 1, transpose negative 6 or use the addition property of equality, add 6 on both sides, it will give us positive 6. So x is equal to 7. So our first solution is x is equal to 7. On the other hand, we have x is equal to negative 1 and then transpose negative 6. This will become positive 6. X equals negative 1 plus 6 is positive 5, which gives us our second solution. So, the solutions for x squared minus 12x plus 35 equals 0 is positive 7 and negative 5.
Our next example is x squared plus 4x minus 8 is equal to 0. So again, make sure that the right side of the equation is equal to 0. If not, simplify it by combining it on the left side of the equation. But since it's 0, let us proceed now to our next step. So, we will use the addition property of equality by adding 8 on both sides of the equation, or we will use the transposition method wherein we will just transfer negative 8 to the right side of the equation, making it a positive 8. So, we now have x squared plus 4x plus, as always, blank is equal to, transfer negative 8, it will become 8 plus blank. So, our goal is to make this a perfect square trinomial. Again, the numerical coefficient of the middle term is 4. So, 4 divided by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then, square it. So, 2 squared or 2 times 2 is 4. So, we have 4 plus 4 on both sides of the equation. Now, we will express x squared plus 4x plus 4 as a square of a binomial. So again, as I have said a while ago, whatever you got when you divide the numerical coefficient of the linear term into 2 would be our second term, which is 2. And then we have x. Since this is plus, this is positive 2 equals 8 plus 4 is 12. So let's simplify this. We have x plus 2 squared is equal to positive 12. So we can now use the square root property that we discussed a while ago. So taking the square root, we now have square root of x plus 2 squared is x plus 2 equals positive and negative square root of 12. Since 12 is not a perfect number, so we can leave it as positive or negative square root of 12. So, we'll have two solutions for that. X plus 2 is equal to positive square root of 12. And the other one is x plus 2 equals negative square root of 12. Combine similar terms or solve for x, we'll have x equals, let's transpose positive 2 to the right side, giving us negative 2 plus square root of 12. On the other hand, we have x is equal to, again, transfer positive 2, it will become negative 2 minus square root of 12. So this will be the solution for x squared plus 4x minus 8 equals 0. Our quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac is equal to 2a. This was derived when the standard form of the quadratic equation was solved using completing the square. So, let us try answering 2x squared minus 6x minus 8 is equal to 0. It is important that your quadratic equation is in standard form because we have to identify the values of a, b, and c. So, since this is in standard form already, we can now identify the values of a, which is 2, b, which is negative 6, and the value of c is negative 8. So, let us substitute the values of a, b, and c to our quadratic formula. So, we have here x equals negative, and then the value of b is negative 6. Positive and negative. Square root of our b again is negative 6 squared minus 4 times 2 our a, and the value of c is negative 8. All over 2 times a. Our a is 2. So let us simplify. X equals negative times negative 6 is positive 6 plus or minus square root of negative 6 squared is 36. So, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 8 times negative 8 gives us positive 64. All over 2 times 2 is 4. So, this is also equal to 6 positive, negative. What is 36 plus 64? Correct. It's 100. So, square root of 100 all over 4. Let's continue simplifying. So, we will have 6 plus or minus the square root of 100 is 10 all over 4. And then, let us continue solving for x. So, we'll have two different answers because one is plus 10 and the other one is negative 10. So, let us divide this into 2. So, we have x equals 6 plus 10 divided by 4. And the other one is x equals 6 minus 10 all over 4. On the left side, we have 6 plus 10 is 16 over 4. And 16 divided by 4 is 4, which gives us our first solution. Next, the other one is 6 minus 10. So, 6 minus 10 is negative 4 all over 4. Dividing negative 4 by 4 is negative 1. So, the solutions to our equation is, or quadratic equation rather, is 4 and negative 1.